Hello again, and welcome to Faith, Family, and Politics. I'm your host, Joshua Cummins. We made it like... I'm not there. Oh, I didn't know what's going on. There's my name. It's flashing.
He's so excited, folks. He is so excited.
Well, we did this once before. You'll see it if you're a Rumble user. You'll get to see some behind-the-scenes clips. Anyhow.
Exciting. That'll be fun.
You'll want to.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm getting like signals from over there. What's going on, Austin? Are you trying to mess me up here? So tonight is a special night. What kind of show are we going to have tonight, Louis?
We're going to have a really big show tonight, and thank you for having me.
That's our host of Rodriguez Rants, Louis Rodriguez. Where's the cheers? Cheers for Louis. Come on, Austin. Get on it here.
Seems like the more people we put in the studio.
Yeah. More people, more problems, right?
Mo people, mo problems.
Yeah, more people, more problems. But the reason I said is it's a special night tonight, guys, because I'm talking way too fast. I'm going to slow it down. A little bit of caffeine in my system. The reason it's a special night tonight is because we have all of Revolver Broadcasting in one room. So that being said, across from Louis, we've got the legend himself.
Not legendary.
Okay, the myth.
The man?
Those.
The host of The Laughing Libertarian, Alan McFarland.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being here. Seriously, thanks for being here.
I'm leaving.
And then next to him, we got a guy that you're going to get real familiar with real quick because he has his own podcast, a new podcast coming out here very soon. You might have seen the previous show that he had before, Danny Tippett.
Yeah. Hello. Thank you for having me. It's called It Makes Sense. We've recorded 100 podcast episodes already, and we've got the first one coming out on Sunday.
They'll believe that, you know that.
Yeah.
The first 20. Seems like a Netflix drop. Bam.
Binge.
Work through
it. Binge worthy. Hashtag.
Oh my goodness. I'll get my composure here in a second. That's supposed to be the job of the host to keep his composure. Anyhow, you got a message for us tonight, Danny?
I got a teaching. How about that?
Okay.
I got a teaching. Yeah. There'll
right.
be one verse we'll use. We'll talk about that at the end. It's pretty simple. But
okay.
We're going to discuss the Kalam Cosmological argument.
Check out that graphic.
There we go.
Right.
That's pretty.
I like it.
Would you mind leading us in prayer?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Lord, we just thank you for this night and this opportunity, and barring all the technical issues and things like that, Father, we're here and we're doing this, and you've given us this space and this time and opportunity to do this. And thank you for having all the guys here, even the folks behind the camera that are helping us out and keeping us straight. And Father, I just ask that you'll bless the talk, the discussion, the conversation, and that it's worthy and praiseworthy to you and glorifying you, God. Just thank you for this time. And Lord, anything that's said here that I say that is not of you, from you, God, I pray that the folks watching this will test this and they'll test it to your word and scripture. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 I heard you mention the people behind the camera. I'm just going to run through some names real quick because let everybody know that because all Revolver Broadcasting is in one room, we've got the perfect producer, Sterling Metcalf Allen. Yell for us, Sterling, so they can hear you on the audio. All right, cool.
That one was real down in the diaphragm. I can feel that one.
And his cousin and our good friend of the show, and he's also been working on our website, young Mr. Cameron Reed. You can shout. Whoa.
That's the loudest he's ever been on the show.
And we've also got our young interns, Austin and Ryan. You guys want to give a real quick shout out? They said no. They're just shaking their heads. Oh, okay, there goes Austin.
There's a shout out. There's your shout out right there. That was your moment.
There's your 15 minutes of fame.
I love how we're like the young. Oh, Sterling, we didn't say that about you.
He's right in there with us,
just
man.
as old as we are.
Yeah. He earned it. He earned it. He's a good father.
Right.
He really is. He's a good father. Is that no? Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and get into the Word of God, I think.
All right. So we have a video we're gonna watch first. I wanted to share it about 4 minutes, so I wanted to share that. And I'm going to talk about it, And the Kalam Cosmological argument is it's not a, foolproof, when we're talking about arguments for the existence of God, and that's what this is going to be talking about. It's a good argument to have, though. It's got a lot of really good points to it. But there's only 3 points, so it makes it real easy. So I really want to discuss and talk about it today. But there's a couple of notes that I have, and we'll get through this. But Sterling will run that video for us. We'll watch that first.
Does God exist? Or is the material universe all that is, or ever was, or ever will be? One approach to answering this question is the cosmological argument. It goes like this: whatever begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore, the universe has a cause.
So
Is the first premise true? Let's consider. Believing that something can pop into existence without a cause is more of a stretch than believing in magic. At least with magic, you've got a hat and a magician. And if something can come into being from nothing, then why don't we see this happening all the time? No, everyday experience and scientific evidence confirm our first premise. If something begins to exist, it must have a cause. But what about our second premise? Did the universe begin, or has it always existed? Atheists have typically said that the universe has been here forever. The universe is just there, and that's all. First, let's consider the second law of thermodynamics. It tells us the universe is slowly running out of usable energy, and that's the point. If the universe had been here forever, it would have run out of usable energy by now. The second law points us to a universe that has a definite beginning. This is further confirmed by a series of remarkable scientific discoveries. In 1915, Albert Einstein presented his general theory of relativity. This allowed us, for the first time, to talk meaningfully about the past history of the universe. Next, Alexander Friedmann and George Lemaitre, each working with Einstein's equations, predicted that the universe is expanding. Then in 1929, Edwin Hubble measured the red shift in light from distant galaxies. This empirical evidence confirmed not only that the universe is expanding, but that it sprang into being from a single point in the finite past. It was a monumental discovery, almost beyond comprehension. However, not everyone is fond of a finite universe, so it wasn't long before alternative models popped into existence. But one by one, these models failed to stand the test of time. More recently, 3 leading cosmologists, Arvin Bord, Alan Guth, and Alexander Vilenkin, prove that any universe which has on average been expanding throughout its history cannot be eternal in the past, but must have an absolute beginning. This even applies to the multiverse, if there is such a thing. This means that scientists can no longer hide behind a past eternal universe. There is no escape. They have to face the problem of a cosmic beginning. Any adequate model must have a beginning, just like the standard model. It's quite plausible then that both premises of the argument are true. This means that the conclusion is also true. The universe has a cause. And since the universe can't cause itself, its cause must be beyond the space-time universe. It must be spaceless, timeless, immaterial, uncaused, and unimaginably powerful, much like God. The cosmological argument shows that, in fact, it is quite reasonable to believe that God does exist.
All right.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. So I'm going to go through these points real quick, and then we can talk about it. And it's 3 simple points. And it's based off this, using this argument is using an argument with somebody else that says, God doesn't exist, right? So secularists, humanists, naturalists, these are folks that don't believe that God exists. They believe that science is all knowledge. That's where we can get all of our knowledge from, is through science. and that this is all we have, the universe, and it's just us. There's nothing supernatural. There's no transcendent anything, okay? It's just what we see. It's like what my dad would say, I'm from Missouri, the show me state. What I see in front of me is what there is, okay? Science is going to tell us everything we need to know, and if it hasn't told us yet, if we don't know yet, eventually it will tell us, all right?
Yeah.
Now, that's what you'll use this argument for. Again, I don't say that this argument 100% just downright says God exists, because people will always try to pick apart. I'm not going to say it's going to convince somebody, but arguments aren't made to be just said in isolation. When you're talking with somebody about the existence of God, you want to talk about a lot of different arguments, because it's about adding to the evidence, right? It's like an accident you see, or a detective is looking at a car accident, right? You want to get all the witnesses that saw as many as possible. You don't want them to have conversations with each other. You want to try to get a fuller picture, because the more separated they are from each other, the more truthful their eyewitness account's going to be.
Yeah.
And so you take all that evidence and you put it together, and you have a better picture, and you can get a better assessment of what actually happened, right? So that's sort of why you would bring this argument in. And this one is very popular. It's one, again, it's very easy to use. And I want to start with the first point, because the first point, there's a key word in here that some people will want to argue with, right? The first point is whatever begins to exist has a cause. The key word there is begins. Whatever starts coming, that comes into existence, right? Because they'll say, well, whatever exists has a cause. Well, I mean, they're going to try to give that to God, right? But God is an infinite being. He's always existed. So this does not apply to him, first and foremost. So whatever begins to exist has a cause. And anything we have seen, I think we can all testify to this, anything we've seen in our lives that we've seen that begins to exist has had a cause.
Yeah.
Nothing has ever produced something that we have ever seen. Right?
It doesn't just go right into existence. It doesn't happen.
Right. So the question is, can something come from nothing? And so the question has to be, what is nothing? This is the crazy part, and this is the part that really racks my brain, because none of us here and no human in history has ever experienced nothing. It literally means no thing. And we can't experience that because we've never been in a place or heard of a place, even a black hole is full of energy. It's not nothing. You're gonna
because even in that space, we would be something.
Exactly.
So therefore, we can't exist.
And the funny thing is scientists have tried, even recently with quantum physics, they have tried to say that in a vacuum that they are seeing these particles coming in and out of existence, right? But the thing is a vacuum is not nothing. A vacuum is energy. And energy is something. And it's even been tried to be explained that nothing, and what actually is meant by that is that nothing is, this is weird, and I was looking it up, and I can't remember who said it, but it was a couple of popular scientists. I think Richard Dawkins was one of them, or Stephen Hawking was one of them, that nothing, maybe it was both of them, nothing is actually something, but they're calling it nothing, which is ironic, right? I mean, it's sort of an oxymoron, I think. It's like, but it is something. Like if you're giving it some kind of physicalness of any sort, it's something. So we can't say that. And that, I think, is hard for a lot of people, especially scientists, that don't want to believe in this idea that nothing is what we had first. They want to say, like Carl Sagan, I have this quote, this is from the beginning of the show Cosmos. I know, has anybody here seen the Neil what's his name? Neil deGrasse Tyson. Thank you, Neil deGrasse Tyson. His Cosmos version. Carl Sagan did the original one. Yeah. And it starts off, it says he says the universe is all there was, all there is, and all there ever will be. And it said at the beginning of this video, right? Well, that premise is saying that material, space, time, and matter has always existed. And we've not seen anything to prove that. And especially if you're a scientist and you're using science to prove all knowledge, science actually disproves that point. We know that science says that anything that comes into existence has to have a cause. Well, if these space, time, and matter has always existed, how did it ever get started to turn into something? Okay, I use this example. You have a line of chairs, and you have a line. Let's say we have a line of Allens sitting in chairs. It's just a line that goes on for infinity to infinity. Okay,
like
this line, it's a lot of Allens. This line never ends. Okay, you're all sitting down, and in order for things to get going, for anything to happen, we have to have Allen stand up. But Alan, you can't stand up till the Alan beside you stands up, and then the Alan beside them, right? But if Alan's always existed, there is no first Alan to actually start the reaction, okay? And so that's what they're trying to tell us. Space, time, and matter's always existed, and then all of a sudden, somehow, right, Big Bang, and then we have this massive, very rapid expansion, and we have a universe, okay? And now they're even trying to tell us multiverse without any proof of that. But anyways, let's not get into that. But that's the idea, right? But they're not making a scientific claim because science has never proven this. This is all based on philosophy. It's all based on not even a theory, because a theory, at least to some degree, has been tested and observed, right? So that's why I have a problem with macroevolution, but we won't get into that either. So again, nothing is no thing. So this is something we can't comprehend, something we can't explain, and only something that God could do something with, right? And because of that, and looking at that, we have to understand that, okay, if somebody does not believe in the supernatural, they're automatically going to disregard it. All right. I've been reading, I was just reading, I don't know if you've heard of Cold Case Christianity, and in this book is a great book by J. Warner Wallace, and he's a cold case detective, and he was an atheist, and he tried to disprove Jesus in the Gospels by using his cold case detective skills. All right. He became a Christian because of his cold case detective skills, proved that Jesus had to have existed and that Gospels were reliable. And one of the things he says in there is that you're taking your evidence, you're putting it all together, and when you're doing that, when you automatically discount a part of that, you're already biased to it. So if you don't believe in the supernatural, anything that seems supernatural, you're already going to say, no, doesn't exist, can't do it, it's done. So now everything you're doing has to be done through a natural biased lens. So scientists that don't want to take into account all the miracles that are in the Bible, especially in the New Testament, they automatically discount those, and they don't want to give those any credence. So something had to explain them, or they're made up, which they go with the made up route, right? So when we're looking at something with this, they can't believe that anything was nothing because they know how foolish it sounds. They know how foolish it sounds that something was from nothing. So they have to say everything was already in existence. But they have no proof of that as well. And that is also very illogical in the sense that at some point that stuff that's already there just decided it wanted to blow up. I mean, what created the spark? What created the friction if it was all inert and dormant and wasn't moving or anything? Okay. So this argument's already starting out to be pretty good for us.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like it can be settled in 4 words.
What's that?
Let there be light.
Let there be light. Don't get ahead of me now. All right. So I want to move on to the next point, which is the second premise. The universe began to exist. All right. So does science say anything about this? And what we just saw was a bunch of stuff, right? I don't know if you guys know who Bertrand Russell is, but he was a mathematical intellectual, and I guess in one sense he was, but he made this, he said, supposed mathematical intellectual made a philosophical claim based on what, that claim that he made in there was that, oh gosh, I can't even remember it. I would love to run it back. And I just lost it. We'll skip that. I think it was, nope, I can't remember it. Anyways, we'll move on. But it does talk on that second point about the universe running out of energy, right? So think about that. If the universe is running out of energy, it had to have started with some amount of energy at some point, right? If we have been in an infinite universe or infinite multiverse, why haven't we already run out of energy? So that's that first point right there, okay? So we know that the universe had to have a point. So it had to have began somewhere. So you go ahead.
I already have a problem with that premise anyway. Right. And just from a scientific situation here, I mean, we already know that energy in the universe doesn't actually go away. It just transfers. So for them to say that it's depleting is completely wrong by their own rationale.
Well, in the sense of, are you talking about the expansion part of the universe, or are you talking about just energy itself?
Energy in general.
Right.
I mean, energy as a rule never actually goes away. It just transfers.
Okay. So when we're talking about energy in the sense of movement, right?
I mean, any energy at all. I mean, the actual like science behind speaking about energy at all. The energy itself always exists. It's kind of the same idea of water on Earth, right? It doesn't really matter how much water you drink, that water is going to be returned to the earth.
Right.
And so the same amount of water is always around. It doesn't escape.
Right.
It doesn't actually grow larger.
Right.
Same with energy. The whole scientific concept of energy is that it doesn't deplete.
Right.
It just transfers into a different form.
Okay, but we can only have so much energy to expand the universe, right? Does
That's
it just continue to keep expanding?
I mean, no,
Or-
it cannot.
or- right.
It shouldn't be able to produce more than what's already
Right.
there. It's a finite amount.
Right, and which is even crazier an idea when they talk about the multiverse, that it will infinity. Their idea, their theory, or their thought is a hypothesis. I guess you couldn't even say it's a theory. Is that there's going to be a creation of infinite amount of multi-universes from the limited amount of space, time, and matter that we had to start off with, because there was a certain amount, right? We didn't have infinity amounts; we just had infinity existence, time, right? So the matter was in what they say was a small dot, or whatever you want to call that, had existed. So time was infinite, but space and matter was not. So when you're looking at that, the energy to push that out would expand it out, but at some point it has to slow, right? Maybe it doesn't run out, like vanish, what I'm saying is, but it will slow down. But we do have a point, and we have seen through the guys that have shown that Hubble with the telescope, which was amazing for a lot of it, because we actually got to see this, observing. The universe is not expanding as fast as it was. It's slowing down, but it also came from a point. The fact is, it is expanding. At one point, if it's expanding out, that means it had started in. And it had to have a beginning point is what I'm getting to. It showed a funnel in that video. So we had to have a beginning point. If we had a beginning point, then we know the universe hasn't always existed. Okay, there's that.
Yeah.
We have to explain, how does space, time, and matter that supposedly existed for an infinity could all of a sudden start, right? And then the amount of energy that it would take. If it was a universe that was here for infinity, does that mean it was, and as far as the amount of energy, so we're talking about, let's just say, the difference of an atomic bomb versus a strike of a match. Okay, what amount of energy did we have to be able to see what we're seeing happening right now? Did we have the infinity amount of an atomic bomb to where somehow energy is just being created, which we know energy is not created, right? Because it's neither created nor depleted, all right? So that goes both ways on that logic. So the energy had to be created from something, and we had to have enough energy to create to where we got now to continue the expansion of the universe, but we do know it's slowing. But the whole point of that is to know it began. So anything that comes in, that begins to come into existence, right, has a cause. The universe began to come into existence as the second premise, which means the universe, and that's the last part, had a cause. So the two premises, would we all agree here? And anybody out there watching, I would love for you to make the jumbled, sense out of the jumbled mess I just spoke, actually. And I thank you for clarifying that on the energy part as well. But if those first two premises we can say to be true, then that would make the conclusion true, would it not? Now, you're the resident agnostic here.
I mean, there's the problem with this debate, this argument, this statement, this conversation, is that both factions have faith, right? It's faith.
Yeah, no,
They have
absolutely.
faith in science, and Christians have faith in God, right? Or just believers have faith in God.
Yeah.
The problem is science is finite in their argument because they have to stay inside these certain rules.
Right.
Whereas people who believe in God get to just go, it's God. It's God. It's God. So it has always been an unfair debate, because literally anytime someone tries to break it down and go, here is the formula, here's how this works, the other person can just go, I don't know what it is, I don't care what it is, it's God.
Yeah.
And so it's both, great to have that faith. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it's to try to pick apart science from a believer standpoint. It's not incredibly fair, because it's literally just like, I don't have to listen to anything you say. I don't care about your numbers. I don't care about your words. I don't care about anything you show me. God, prove me wrong. Well, I can't. Well, obviously God. It's not a really good. I don't like that comparison.
Yeah.
But I'm not trying to pick anything apart. I'm just saying.
No.
It is it's faith on
you're
both
bringing
sides.
up a great point, because that is the problem with science, right? Being a believer I don't discount science.
Right.
I
Exactly.
love science as a believer because this is the point of what I'm making. Number one, I already said at the beginning, the argument can't stand alone because what you're trying to do is you're just as much as a person who believes in God can say, well, God, right? Which is unfortunate. I can't stand when a Christian says, well, just God. No, there are some things that science has proven that we have to take into account. Scientifically, we see that. There's a lot of things that we take as fact, though, with science. That's not actually fact. It's still like a theory. Let's talk about evolution, not microevolution. We see that. That has been proven.
Right.
Macroevolution, on the other hand, is not. We have no missing link. We have no transitional fossils, right? We can still talk about...
And they still haven't found Sasquatch.
Nope, still haven't found Sasquatch. I don't know if he's transitional, but I think he could exist.
He
He's
can
just
be a he or
being.
she, whatever he chooses in this.
Right.
They can choose what they want. He can transition, she can transition as Sasquatch.
That's right.
There's a few things I want to say.
Yeah.
So what you're trying to say is that sooner or later energy will finish.
No.
Let's put it down like a baby.
Right.
A baby's born by energy, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And it grows, it builds up energy.
Mm-hmm.
And then as it gets older, it starts losing energy. And then finally that energy disappears. Could that be what you're trying to bring up in science?
It's like what Alan says, it's transfers, right? Now you're talking about life and death, right?
So you transfer from you to making another baby.
And we're not talking about like spiritual energy either, too, right?
So it's like physically.
Physical
So
injury.
think of it this way: you're born, right? So that's energy transferring from your mother or whatever, transferring to you, right? That's energy being given. When you die, you become a part of the earth, which then feeds everything else, transferring your energy
To make more energy.
Yeah.
and you're left as carbon.
Yeah, you ate the deer, now the deer eats you.
Yeah.
So
In a physical sense.
in a physical sense,
Right.
could God be an energy?
God is a spirit. That's what the Bible tells us. God is definitely a spirit. God creates energy. God is the creator of energy. From a Christian standpoint, from a biblical standpoint, right? God is the creator of all. God is the one who made something out of nothing. God's not in, and he's not in space matter. And that was the end of this thing, is to understand, like, a watch cannot produce itself. A watch is not going to make another watch. All right. A watchmaker has to make a watch. And that watchmaker is outside of the boundaries of that watch.
But a robot can make another robot.
Only before the person who made that robot to make that robot.
But then they kill that person and they just replicate. Now there's no history and there's only faith that the human ever existed.
Yeah, you and that chat AI stuff, man. You can stay away from that.
He's been hanging out with ChatGPT.
Yeah.
700 generations of robots later, they're like, were there people? I don't know. Some robots believe there were. Some robots only know of robots who create robots.
gotta
It's just
do is-
philosophical.
Just got to believe in God. He was there first at the
Robot
very
God.
beginning. Robot God. Well, the science part of it is something I think is in more support, though, because the scientist has to have the faith that science is going to eventually reveal how nothing can exist.
Right. So I say
Or
it's a
even
faith.
what nothing is, right? And I think that that's the bigger problem. However, we can't do this because if you're going to make that leap towards supernatural in an argument with a naturalist, they're not going to just solely believe the supernatural exists just because you made this argument. But there's plenty other arguments that you can make for supernatural. So you can't, this is why I made that sort of that stipulation, that disclaimer at the beginning. Don't just say, okay, I'm going to make this argument to this person who doesn't believe in miracles or the supernatural and will prove to them science is great, but science is a product of God who created everything out of nothing because he is outside of space, matter, and time, because he created space, matter, and time. But it's not going to probably be that sole point that you can just say that. And some people might just be like, well, yeah, that makes absolute sense. The questions I would like to get to after that, if I get to a person that says, okay, well, maybe I'll entertain the idea of an intelligent designer, maybe not Christian God, right? My next questions would be, why? Why would he design anything, right? Who is it and why would he do it? Those would be my next two questions. And that's a conversation for a whole nother day, right? But it should draw us to more questions, okay? And if you can get somebody to start to go, okay, maybe I will concede that there had to be a beginning. I will concede that it takes a lot more faith for me to believe that I have to believe that this stuff existed for all time somehow when science tells me that that's not possible. Okay, I will have to give into that. I got you. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to say God was the one that created it. I'm not going to say that, which if we're talking about the entire universe, they had to be very powerful. Like the video says, they had to be very powerful. There had to be a lot of intentionality behind it. They had to be very intelligent, pretty much all knowing, right? Omniscient, omnipotent. Those are two characteristics. I wouldn't say omnipresent, but potentially you could throw that in there somehow, right? But these are all descriptions of God that we've been told that the Bible tells us.
Yeah.
So, and the Bible is not a scientific book. It by no means is that. That's not what it's there for. It's relaying a story of redemption to those who will believe in it. Okay. And God sharing who he is and why he does what, but he's not giving us scientific, theories and things like that. It's not what it's there for.
Well, I know you talked about the watchmaker, but like in my mind, when we started talking about this and the argument itself, I imagined a small child with a bucket of Legos. Because I don't know if everybody at this table ever had, but their kids are very purposeful when they get a hold of, even if they're just left to their own devices. I know I was when I was a Lego fanatic as a kid, and you give me a bucket of Lego, man, I would come up with all kinds of ideas, and I would have purposes for every little brick piece that I had, and I would figure it out, and then I'd go to show my parents and be like, look what I built. And they'd say, oh, what's the purpose for that? And there would be a purpose for every little thing that I built, even the little hinges or anything like that. I had made sure that I had a purpose for every little thing. It was just like, I relate that to, obviously God's way bigger than just some small child, but it's just that idea of you exist outside of those Lego bricks.
Yeah.
They weren't going to put themselves together.
No. No, it's like, again, how does the watch get put together? How do you put a computer together? The randomness of evolution in the Big Bang Theory is amazing. When you even get into the second law of thermodynamics and you're trying to, one of the things I know somebody had pointed out, I thought this was brilliant, okay, is if everything, the Big Bang was thought to have started in this explosion and everything just sort of whipped out of this circular, right out. But the crazy thing about it is if that were the case, if everything started in this circular pattern and just spun out, well, how is it that we have several planets spinning the opposite direction of other planets? And then we have other planets orbiting the opposite direction around the sun as other planets. Like it doesn't even make sense when you look at the orbits and the rotations of the planets just in our solar system.
Yeah, the physics
not
actually
to
change.
mention the universes themselves and how they're moving around. And what's going on in their own universes or their own galaxy, I just said multiverse, but the other galaxies and what's going on. So when we just look at our own laws that apply to us on Earth that we know are here, that are laws that extend into the universe. These are physical laws, right, that extend into the universe. Then we should have all planets rotating in the same direction, all planets orbiting in the same direction, right? And the sun doing the same thing. Yeah, now, I don't know what that would cause, but that's typically what our laws tell us that this should happen.
I imagine if you flush a toilet on Mars, that it would go the same.
It would go the same direction, right? I never even thought about that. I'm curious. But
come on, Elon, get me there.
If you lost in that example, think of those merry-go-rounds, right? Yeah. And then when you're a kid and you're holding on and you want the biggest, baddest dude to come over and start pushing that thing. And you're like, no, don't push it. Like run with it, right? And you start off and you're having fun. You're like, yay. Right, and you're all in the center, and then next thing you know, this big dude's going faster and faster, and then you start to feel your butt sort of scooting out towards the edge, okay?
Yeah.
And then eventually, it's sort of like I'm holding on for dear life with two hands, okay? And then if you're lucky enough, you get to fly off. But when you do come flying off of that merry-go-round, you are going to spin the same direction as the direction that the merry-go-round was going as well.
It's in the world, the whole world between and us are all created with atoms.
Oh yeah. We're all full of atoms.
So that's what builds up a lot of the energy.
Yep. Yeah. That's. I'm not saying I disagree with the Big Bang per se. There's the idea that Christians will have. Well, God supplied the energy. Okay, I'm not going to argue that point. When we're talking about this, and the thing I love about this argument is it doesn't even say the word God in it. It just says the word cause. Because cause is something that comes across to a person that's more on the scientific side of things as more of like not so intimidating, number one. And that we're not here to intimidate in a sense. We're just here to have a conversation, right? I'm going to argue my point. If you're telling me that science says that anything that comes into existence has a cause, then let's apply that to the beginning of the universe. Because we know scientifically the universe had a beginning. So if the universe had a beginning, then we have to see scientific laws apply to that as well. Why don't we? Why don't we is my question. So if we can get somebody to say there was a cause, now the conversation is, well, what's the cause? That's where we're getting to here. That's the point of, that's sort of why I wanted to talk about that tonight, because I think too many times I've heard too many atheists just rail on Christians to say how lacking it is in intellectual thought, how lacking we are as thinkers or critical thinkers for that matter. And I honestly will agree to some degree that a lot of Christians are, because we do exactly what you said, Alan. Well, God said so, right? In the verse I was going to bring up is, in the beginning, God created. That's Genesis 1:1, right? And it tells us right off the bat, everything from here, God did. Everything from here, God did. But that isn't a scapegoat. Like, there is things that don't shy away from science. As a Christian, you don't have to shy away from science. Don't be afraid of it. It's a great thing. God gave us the ability to observe and experiment and use our brains.
And discern. Yeah.
Right? And if you even think about the first scientists in the first place, a lot of them were doing what they were doing because they were believers. A lot of them were Christians, and maybe not Christians, but deists and believers in God, in a creator of the universe. And they were doing what they're doing because they wanted to learn more about creation. That's the amazing thing.
They respected the work of God.
Yeah.
One of the point you made, though, I loved when you were talking about evolution and things, and it's kind of the opposite end. Okay, so I don't know. I came across a long time ago, I came across plenty of people who were Christians who basically tried to say that evolution didn't happen, that God put everything here. And I said, that doesn't make sense. Well, why doesn't it make sense? God makes all things. Okay, that's fine. I can understand that, but why would God make dumb things? Well, what do you mean dumb things? Well, do you find yourself to be dumb? Well, no. Do you adapt to your surroundings? Well, yes. Okay, then why would God why would he just make something and just say, okay, when that thing runs its course and it can no longer do its job, it dies off and I'll create something else, when he can just make something, set it and forget it? Mm-hmm. Why can't he just make a horse and go, okay, when that horse is somewhere and the trees stop growing, the branches stop being as low as in this environment, well, the horses with the longer necks now can eat there, so they can actually keep replicating.
They become giraffes.
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, why wouldn't God, being as smart as he is, why wouldn't he just set it and forget it? Why couldn't he just make something that evolves? And micro evolutions, right. And so I've just, early on, I dealt with a lot of people who were like, it's evolution or creation. And I'm like, that's not true. Right. You can have both. They can both exist simultaneously.
Yeah. And they absolutely do.
Yeah, and I think I find it even interesting that some evolutionists, and when I say evolutionists, understand that the ones who don't believe in God, they believe that evolution is not the origin of the universe. That's the evolving of a species, right?
Right.
And it's if you want to talk about evolution, we want to specify macroevolutions. They're talking about seeing one species jump and turn into a complete other species, right?
Yeah.
We're not talking about changes within a species, and I find it interesting, like I forget, just the birds at the Galapagos Islands. Like, evolutionists have used that to be their example because their beaks have changed over time, right? But that's the same species. The bird's the same. That's fine.
They adapted to their surroundings, and they also adapted to not having any natural predators or something like that. Yes,
exactly.
So the reason a lot of Christians believe in God is because when Jesus came down here, he told us to believe in him. And is that true or not?
Well, if you believe his scripture, you believe that, first of all, the reason why we believe in God is because we know who we are. I think we don't, and then this is sort of maybe getting off topic, but I'm going to say this very quickly. A lot of people believe in God. Satan believes in God. The angels believe in God. The demons of hell believe in God. It's not until we understand who we are in light of who God is, right? Until we understand that we're sinful, we're depraved, we need a savior. That's when we believe in God to the next level of where we have faith and we decide to say, hey.
Could it be that we are creating God and believing in God?
Now, I will say this, and I bet Alan will attest to this, that is a claim on the other side, that God is man-made. God is man-made as a crutch, which is funny because, I needed that crutch. That crutch is exactly what I needed. And I think that's funny because the irony of saying that he's just a crutch for mankind. Well, yeah, because I'm weak and I'm fallible and I make a lot of stupid mistakes and I absolutely am limping a lot through my life. Yeah, I could use Jesus the crutch.
Use that 1,000-foot crutch.
Exactly. But I get what they're saying. That what they're saying is because we're scared or we're fearful or we're afraid of knowledge or we're afraid of expansion. We're afraid of growing. We're afraid of progress. We start to make up what people say fairy tales.
So we have to believe in God to keep our faith up.
We believe
and
in
our hope.
We believe in God because of what we know he did for us, and because of what he did for us, we love him, right? And so our faith is dead without works. That works as part of that is following him. We want to fulfill his law in our hearts because we know that law in our hearts being the good thing that leads us into righteousness and holiness, because he's holy, we're holy. I've seen ourselves. It's sometimes hard as humans to see when we're redeemed by God to continue to see ourselves as redeemed. We sometimes see ourselves as that sinful person still, and that's hard for us to grow. It's called sanctification. Sanctification is that lifelong process of growing to become more like Christ, right?
Yeah. When
we're trying to become more like Christ, sometimes we're trying to do that, still looking in our past, going, "Well, I'm still that guy." I can tell you that from experience. I've had to tell him, I had to yell at myself. Out loud one time. I was so mad at myself. I was like, "I'm not that person anymore. Stop saying or thinking or seeing yourself as the person who did all those things. God saved you. He's forgiven you. Move on and move in him and live for him and serve him." And I'm grateful for that. I will never not be grateful for that. But I get what you're saying, and it is one of those things that the other side, those who aren't believers, they look at it as a weakness, and they look at it as ignorance in a lot of ways too.
Oh, yeah. You had something?
Well, I didn't know if you wanted to move forward, so I was going to throw some out there, but I know time is what it is. Just a softball pitch there.
Throw it up. Or did I throw it up? And
No. Here we go. No, I will say that this conversation has evolved. But
where's it?
Hey, Austin.
Do we have that?
Yeah. But try it again, Alan, real quick.
I have to say that this conversation evolved.
He still missed.
Man, that's it. Okay, we're going to move on. Moving on.
He'll get it later.
That's it. What if?
All right.
What if the universe is a sandbox? Okay. God doesn't care about the sandbox, but he cares about humanity and all living things here. What if our God is God over people, not over the universe? What about that?
So why would you say that?
I'm just saying.
So I'm just trying to know why you're asking that question.
It's not to pick it apart. It's not to break it down. But I've thought about this concept before, right? We think of God in context to us. We think of God in context to our planet.
Right.
The life. We don't think about the rock.
Right.
We don't think about what God thinks about cobalt.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Yeah. But we think about how God affects our lives previous and after. Mm-hmm. During, obviously. But what if God exists solely
for the people?
For people, and instead so we don't have
the universe.
What if the universe is a giant sandbox and God is like, "Hey,
go play in it.
I don't know what this stuff is. I don't care.
Oh, okay.
This stuff doesn't matter to me.
I got you.
I came.
Right.
I don't care. This is my focus, and this is all I care about. And this is my total existence is right here.
The people.
Yeah. Yes.
I totally agree with that. I think the sandbox though is for us to play in. So I think he created all of this for us because he loves us this much. So why are we created? Because he's a relational being. Now that will go down into the Trinity doctrine. You have to talk about that. And there's a lot of great stuff on that. But believing he's a triune God, they were in relationship, right? One God, three persons. And in those three persons, they were in relationship. They didn't need us. They wanted us. He created us because he loves us, because he wanted us. So God never needed us. But I agree with you completely. He created this sandbox, threw us in it because he wanted to have a relationship with us. Now, free will is something that he did allow. Otherwise, there is no love without free will. You can't have love without free will. It's just not possible.
Well, I'm playing with the idea that the sandbox was here and he wandered into it.
Oh.
Yes. Such as you built the terrarium in your house.
Right.
Yes, you created life here. You care about the life here. You change and adapt and do everything you can to it, but you didn't necessarily build the apartment that it's in.
So my question would be, how did the sandbox get here?
I mean, that's up for debate, but I'm just saying, can we even, if we're going to ask somebody who is looking at it from a scientific perspective to say, hey, God made this, can we also accept that maybe God didn't make that, but God exists inside of something that's greater than God?
Sure. I wouldn't go that route. But one of the things that humanists or naturalists will argue this is that there is no God. Because there is no God, there's no free will. Because there's no free will, there's no purpose. We shouldn't even be asking why questions. I actually my first podcast episode, for It Makes Sense, was actually on 3 questions, right? Do we have purpose? What happens when we die? And I can't even remember the first question. I don't know why I keep blanking on those. But one of the things that the guy kept adding, this guy was a naturalist. One of the things he kept saying was, it was so funny. Well, we shouldn't even be asking these questions. Why? It doesn't really matter. It's just how. And that's really, when you look at somebody who doesn't believe in God, everything's about how for them. They don't want to approach why, because why starts to get into those transcendent questions. Why do I have purpose? Well, where's my purpose come from? Well, if I don't believe in a God and there's nothing outside of me, then purpose has got to come within me. And then, well, I screw everything up. So how does purpose come? So people just tend to want to stay away from those why questions, or there's these temporary ideas of purpose that they have, making it from one goal to the next goal, to the next goal, to the next goal. But when they run out of goals, and because they don't feel there's any purpose in their life, there's a lot of issues that happen at that point. So the idea is what is my overarching purpose? Why am I here? Why am I created?
Yeah.
Well, that's very simple for Christians. We're created because we're here to worship God. We're here as image bearers. We're here to know and finally believe and understand this hole in my heart is I've been missing him, because sin has created a separation between me and God. And that sin, creating that separation, requires me to need to feel this hole. Well, God sent his son to die for me, to die for those sins, which then fills that gap, that hole, once I accept that. And because I'm accepting that, he shows me, he reveals to me, this is your purpose. Your purpose is several things, but ultimately is to glorify me. And glorifying me is not just one thing. It's not just living on earth and just saying, oh, I love Jesus, and going around and just telling everybody that. That glorifying is living in him and what his goal is and what his purposes are and what he is desiring to see for all humanity. Because we don't know who's going to accept Christ and who's not. So our job is to tell everybody. This is why people have such a hard time with evangelicals, is because we want to tell everybody, not because we want to throw our beliefs and opinions on others for control, because we know what God saved us from. We want everybody else to feel the same, that same salvation, that same experience of forgiveness, because regardless of how good you think you are, deep down inside, we all know there's things we screw up on. There's things that we mess up. There's things that we feel guilty for or shame for. And because we're created the way we are, I think this is the craziest thing. People say, well, why is there good in the world? Why is there evil in the world? Well, there's evil in the world because sin exists. There's good in the world because God exists. Everything good is a fingerprint and evidence of God's existence. You have the great good qualities of who you are because God's fingerprints on you, because you're his Picasso, right? And I'm not trying to say that because Picasso does all these weird, crazy, sort of surreal paintings, okay? You're a very handsome man, all right? I already told you that earlier. I sent you all those other emojis. Okay. All right. So anyways.
I don't like to reiterate to everybody this information. Just keep it moving.
I'm uncomfortable there. But I think we have to have this idea that when we're talking to somebody who just doesn't believe in God, there's a lot of implications I don't even think they take into consideration. When there's no God, where do we get our ethics and morals from? If we're depending on human beings for that, why haven't we evolved from evil? We've been around for a while. Maybe not as, depending on what you believe, if it's a young earth or an old earth. We've been around for a while. Why do we still do evil if we know it's wrong?
Depends how we display. Okay. The perception of evil is really what we're looking at, right? I mean, one thing that's evil to you is completely different when they tell you the story, right? That's why they say that the winners, the victors always give you the history. Everybody's point of view is different. Just because you see somebody, I don't know, rob a place, it doesn't mean that they're trying to make sure that those people don't have the money as much as they're trying to make sure their kid's eating, right?
There are those situations that you would talk about, right?
But those are like a high percentage chance of what we would consider evil if we were the victim of it. Then there's pure evil.
So you're saying if we're the victim of it, but what if we're removed from that? What if we're not the victim of it, but we know somebody robbed somebody else?
I mean, it depends. I mean, a lot of people would still look at it as evil.
Right.
Because they don't know they see the action without seeing the circumstance.
Right. And then where does that moral standard come from?
That's the issue, right? Yeah, I mean, we are all, I mean, typically we, as humans, period, just like several species, we are a community species. We are a communal species. We typically, that's why when you see, generally speaking, something happen to someone who's handicapped, for instance, it is natural, even among inmates, murderers, things like that. They will stand up for that person. Right. We are a communal species. But again, if we see something, we see the action, we don't understand the underlying circumstance. So by and large, most of the things that we see as evil or bad is usually a circumstance of their life, and it's our perception and their perception of their own lives that they're trying to overcome. Then there is actual pure evil, I think.
Right.
But even then, even if we drop the big H guy from Germany and we say that's pure evil, his perception was that he was not being evil.
Right. And that's the problem, though, isn't it?
Right.
So the problem with that is that if we believe what Sam Harris, an atheist, says, we're just doing everything for the well-being of human beings. My question is who's defining that well-being? You or Hitler?
I mean, we are, as a communal species, we actually, all animals have instincts, period. And we're not above being an animal in way, shape, and form.
Right. But do we put a lion in jail for murdering a wildebeest?
Do we put a lion in jail for murdering a wildebeest?
Do we consider a lion killing a water buffalo murder?
Well, because we don't consider them to be on the same level as us, so we don't.
We consider them just to be animals, right?
Yes.
I mean, that would be the next question. How are we distinct? Are we distinct from any other species? Because if there is no God, why are we distinct? Why do we think the way we do? I tell a person who tries to tell me that morality is subjective. I'll say, well, okay, if morality is subjective, I'm going to go to your house tonight. You leave your front door open. I'm going to walk in. I'm going to steal every flat screen TV in your house. I'm going to leave it.
Would that man be
I'm going to take it out. What's that?
Would he be evil if he's stealing because he's starving?
No. Well, you're getting to his point about starving and everything. That is a conversation to be had, right? If they're breaking the law, that's the law of that land. But when we're talking about stealing on the sense of trying to feed our children, that can be a debatable point. But we're talking about objective moral failures, right? We're talking about ones that aren't subjective. We're talking about objective ones. Now, there's a consequence to everybody stealing anything at any time, depending on the country you're in. And it doesn't matter the reason. And that's why we have levels of punishment, okay? But when we're talking about the rape of children, when we're talking about human trafficking, right? Now, we know that there's societies out there that were okay with murdering their kids. So here's the question. If everything's subjective, if people the Aztecs let's just use the Canaanites. The Canaanites sacrificed their kids to their gods, Molech, okay? Yeah. All right. Would everybody here at this table agree that that's evil?
I think it's kind of bad.
Okay. Would you?
I mean, as a general rule, but you're applying today's social norms to another society, so that changes everything.
Am I applying today's, or would somebody 20 years ago or 20 years from now also believe the same thing?
That would still land inside of today's. That's okay. Today's culture being applied.
Then let's talk about centuries ago.
We see that in politics all the time. Right. That's why I'm bringing it up.
No, I agree with you, but here's the thing. I think across all time, we reject those types of societies. They thought it was okay. That's my point. They thought it was okay.
But the surrounding societies of the time.
If everything was subjective, would we even have the words right and wrong in our vocabulary? Would those have even been created at any point? If we take away morality, are we nothing more than robots that are doing exactly what we should be doing just to survive to the next day? Do we even hope to live to the next day, or are we just living? Do animals hope to live to the next day, or are they just surviving as the inborn instincts that they have?
They're surviving.
We don't operate like that. Does art help us survive? Is being gay good for the survival of our species? Do you see what I'm talking about? Like, we don't. Yeah. Those things aren't applied to the animal kingdom. Do we sit and appreciate music for the survival of ourselves? Maybe mentally, but as far as physical survival, that does nothing for us. Art, music, those types of appreciations, other kinds of appreciations that we have, those aren't applied to the animal kingdom. They don't do those things.
But you're also applying that the wealth of a people that isn't consistent along all cultures across the entire across the entire world.
Different appreciations in different cultures or anything. But again, going back to the fact that if we believe in subjective morality, we have no place to tell any civilization of any time that what they did was wrong.
But I'm saying your comparison falls through when you look at like a really poor country where people are technically surviving every single day and they will kill to get anything they need to survive.
Right. Situation. Okay. That's, again, a situational thing. But when we're talking about objective morality,
okay,
all right, there is a baseline of objective morality. And we can only get that through a moral lawgiver. Otherwise,
it falls on the fact that we're a communal species and that killing off our own kind isn't okay, but that's fine.
But if there's no objective morality, because it can't be both ways. It can't be subjective and objective, right?
I mean, you're right to that extent.
So it has to be one or the other.
But you're saying that is passed down from something greater than us, not us as a species just saying this is not okay because of the fact that it doesn't further our species.
What I'm saying is from the beginning of time, we wouldn't even have these things. There would be no need for morality if God didn't exist.
Of necessity of people. I mean, unless you're just saying people don't exist without God, but the necessity of other people's skills and things that they can provide have done that. That's the reason why, for instance, we have dogs, right? There was necessity. It wasn't just because a dog said, I don't want to eat that person.
Right.
That day.
No, I agree.
So people are the same way. I mean, this person provides a skill or an ability or the ability to procreate. Right. Therefore, we need to actually bond with those people, and we need to protect those people, and we need to actually build from that. So,
which is evidence of God.
Again, you're going back to everything is God.
That's evidence of God. That's what I'm saying, though.
But that's what I'm saying is
a person who claims subjective morality does not live that life. Nobody does.
It's not necessarily true. I mean,
nobody lives. So anybody who lives in life has morals, right? They're objective to them, maybe.
Yes.
Maybe not. Okay.
We'll say that. We'll
Canaanites thought it was objective morality for them to kill their babies, right?
If they believe so, yes.
Okay. If they believe so, right?
There's morals they throw atomic bomb here, and then we become animals to survive.
Right.
So,
Well, I would even believe if there was a nuclear war,
let's say
we would all still have these morals. Because again, I believe God exists, so we would still have these morals.
Not everybody would have those morals.
No, you're right. Not everybody does. You're absolutely right. There are psychos out there. There are people out there that kill people. No, I completely agree with you.
Or people that actually break and become psychos because of their situation. Situational psychos.
That's fair.
Yeah. Well, my point here is, and I think what your misunderstanding with me is that objective morality prevents us from having lived this chaotic world that we don't live in. Like, we see sin is rampant. We see psychos. That's part of sin. The reason why people choose to do evil things that they consider to be good is because they're sinful. We live in a broken world. We live in a sinful world, and that sin has tainted what was perfect when God created. And going back to God in the sandbox, I don't believe in the sandbox idea because everything he created was good. Because he said everything he created was good, even man, before he sinned. And he even still believes in that because he sent us Jesus. If he didn't believe man was still good, then he wouldn't have sent Jesus. Now, we're still sinful natured after the fall, but that's why we have people in civilizations that do these wrong things. And that's exactly why we can't depend on them for our morals. We can't depend on ourselves for those morals. Because if we do have those societies that decide, you know what, maybe it's okay that we kill 62 million babies before they even come out of the womb.
And I think in the interest of time, I think we're over into the politics portion. I think is that far
maybe that was a jump right there. Good job.
So we got some videos. We rolled this very good conversation, by the way, guys. I love that back and forth.
We could keep this all night.
That was good, man.
Yeah. So that's why I just kind of let it play out. I wanted to be more of an observer with this because this was a very good conversation. I think it's a conversation that needs to be had. See how civil this was? You can do this.
It can be done. It can be done.
I mean, I love this guy. I really do.
Yeah. So. Alan and I are going to have more future conversations. I can't wait.
But yeah, I think Sterling, we're probably we've got in that full first hour. I think, yeah,
we're right there.
Yeah. So, you're talking about people doing things wrong, and I equate that to being Democrat. So.
Hey, we agree.
It's an objective truth, right?
It's an objective truth. We agree.
So our first story tonight comes from the Daily Caller, and the White House issues Woman's Award to biological man on International Women's Day.
Oh my gosh!
Now the title alone from this article breaks my brain. Now, just 2 years ago. Would anybody in the room have thought that they would read this headline?
This just proves the patriarchy exists. All the best women are men.
Men are kicking tail right now.
Yeah, take that, ladies.
We do everything better, apparently. Wow. I know I said that, but I'm being proven right.
This is going to be clipped out of context by somebody, and they're going to edit it together and... Yeah.
It's satire. It's satire, y'all. Babylon B. Go ahead. Sorry.
Anyhow, the White House issued an award to Alba Rueda, a biological man, on International Women's Day during the 2023 International Woman of Courage Awards. Rueda is Argentina's special envoy for sexual orientation and gender identity in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. My goodness, that's a mouthful.
I think there's more, isn't there? Isn't there more?
I can't goad Alan into anything tonight. So Rueda is responsible for the country's adoption of the Transgender Labor Quota Act, which reserved 1% of public sector jobs in Argentina for transgender people, according to the State Department press release. Quote, now in the 17th year, the Secretary of the State's IWOC award recognizes women from around the globe, who have demonstrated exceptional courage, strength, and leadership advocating for peace, justice, human rights, gender equality, and gender equity and equality. Those two get conflated so much nowadays.
They do, absolutely.
That's a whole other thing. And the empowerment of women and girls and all their diversity. There's just women. That's it. There's nothing outside that. Often at great personal risk and sacrifice. That was from the press release. In Argentina, Alba Rueda is a transgender woman. This is also part of the quote. Alba Rueda is a transgender woman who was kicked out of classrooms, barred from sitting for exams, refused job opportunities, subjected to violence, and rejected by it says her family, but it's his family. It's a male. Okay, guys.
Yeah.
Secretary of Defense Kathleen Hicks said as Rueda's received. My goodness, that's a hard name to say. Rueda received the award from the First Lady Jill Biden and Secretary of State Anthony Blinken. Yeah. Did you say Abe Lincoln? Sorry, it was popped into my head. Quote, but in the face of these challenges, he worked to end violence and discrimination against the LGBTQI plus. Man, that thing just keeps getting alphabet soup. Community in Argentina. Several leftist individuals and organizations celebrated International Women's Day by upholding biological men, including the ACLU of Indiana. Thanks, Indiana. That's our home state. Democrat Representative Cori Bush and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. I'm not surprised by Justin Trudeau, old Prime Minister blackface.
Oh, got me. I was going that way.
Hey,
bro.
you got the good conversation. I get the jokes this time.
That was good. That was
That's
good.
a fair trade-off.
I was like, no, he got me on the blackface.
So what do we think about a guy getting Woman's Award on International Women's Day?
I think she's brave.
Courage. She had courage.
So much courage.
Courage.
So much. I can't do it.
I just yeah. I would hate to be a woman right now. Like,
but you totally can be. I throw on a dress, you know.
But I would be so pissed off. I don't understand. I was just talking actually to my daughter about this, and there was a video going around, a viral video going around of a guy having a conversation, and he was asked if who would he have sex with, the most beautiful trans woman in the world.
That's on the At Whatever podcast. Yeah.
Or an old woman. He was like, no, I had sex with the oldest lady in the world because I would be gay if I
at least wouldn't be gay. Yeah.
Yeah. And the two girls just went off on. These are actually biological females and actual women.
Part of the brainwashing. Yeah.
Oh, what in the world?
I love the ones like, you wouldn't be gay, and he's like, how would I not be gay? It's still a dude.
It's a dude.
Yeah.
What?
I can't be around you. You're just hateful.
But that's the thing,
that's
right?
fine. That's okay. As long as you and that trans person are in the same place, seems like my day's all right.
They snagged a hold of logic, looked at it for a second, and then just tossed it behind them. I don't need that.
It doesn't make sense. And they're the party of science. That's what doesn't make sense to me. It's like, I don't get that.
No, that doesn't make sense.
I don't get that. It doesn't make sense. So frustrating.
Might have to do that as a segment on your show.
Yeah, it will come up, I'm sure. It boils my blood. It really does.
The party of science doesn't seem to understand chromosomes, but they act like they have an extra one.
Right.
That is a really good way of putting that, Alan.
Okay, you remember back in the day, there was I was gay or I was cross-dresser or transvestite, right?
Yeah,
so you just dressed up as a woman, right? But you didn't believe you were actually a woman. You just dressed up as a woman.
You just thought you looked pretty,
right,
dressed like a woman.
Right, okay. Yeah. So now the transvestite, I guess, no longer exists because you don't actually have to claim to be a woman and then change into that woman. Which, you can't obviously change into a woman,
Yeah.
but get the parts added or chopped off or whatever you want to do. Okay, you don't even have to do that anymore. Like the swimmer, right? Leah didn't just. The more stuff has been coming out of the bathroom.
Willie Thomas, right, Alan?
Right, yeah.
Willie Thomas.
Walking around the bathroom, just naked, butt naked, and I'm like, how does anybody look at that and go, there's no way. I heard of a volleyball team that was kicked out of their locker room for the guy that was on their volleyball team. We were uncomfortable. Well, too bad. You're gonna have to go dress somewhere else. He gets the whole locker room, the whole girls' locker room to himself. I'm like, oh my god!
How you like that internationally? They as of this week can compete in powerlifting.
Oh, well, that's how Zuby got his thing going, right?
This is
Zuby claimed to be a girl, went in and broke the British record for what is it called, deadlift. Walked out, said he was a man. I mean that's how you.
Well, right now they're still fighting. They're still fighting to play in women's sports.
Yeah.
They're trying to overturn the judges in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And right now, Washington said, I forgot the state that they wanted to play in soccer and sports.
It's not going to happen in Florida, I tell you that.
Yeah.
And they said that they're going to let them play for now while Washington decides what they're going to do about that.
Yeah.
Well, once all the records are unattainable by actual biological women, they'll get rid of them.
They don't give up. They keep insisting.
It's insane. It's crazy.
What I watched, there's something on track. I was watching something that had to do with track, and they were like showing how a guy who transitioned in a mile, 4 laps, right? And these people are running these laps in slightly over a minute or right at a minute on average.
Yeah.
Won by a minute. Won by a whole minute.
Wow.
So
they had the 2 high school sprinters.
Yep, the high school sprinters. Yeah,
2 guys.
Oh, they finished first and second. Oh,
Yeah.
go figure.
Yeah, by a mile too.
My word.
Oh, it's just
They finished by a mile in the 100-meter.
right.
That's what was so impressive.
That's so impressive.
4 laps versus a quarter of a lap, but they did it.
And then, and this here, Louis, it's the White House, man. That's our president's home, right?
Right.
And they're issuing this to a guy on International Women's Day. That's a whole new holiday that I didn't know actually existed until this year.
That's all it is. They're looking for votes.
A woman's award given by a woman to a man.
Yeah. Allegedly. I don't know. No, I actually did. I had to do
It must make the woman
Did y'all hear about well, y'all didn't y'all talk about the guy
brings woman.
Which guy?
that was in the pageant?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
ended up winning the pageant?
Yeah, I saw that.
Did y'all- And the guy
I can't remember what pageant it was, but yes, it was a dude.
Somebody on Daily Wire was like, he wouldn't have won if, even if it was okay, he still shouldn't have won. He was not a good looking man.
It's not even remotely passable.
It's just crazy. I mean, and maybe I'm a lot more sensitive to that because I have a daughter who competes in sports, and I go, I was looking at the prospect of her having to be in a co-ed league.
Oh yeah.
And I'm going, as a parent, I didn't care about my daughter competing against boys.
Right.
As a coach, I was like, well, I don't want these boys just running these girls off the court. And, whoever has their boys in longer wins the game.
Right.
So, maybe I'm a little more.
My daughter plays volleyball, and she's played against a boy, 2 teams already that have a boy on the team. All right. Luckily for her, they weren't that good. Okay. There was a girl that had facial fractures from a boy that spiked a ball into her face in a game because he hit it so hard. Like, they're just not used to that. Like, if you get somebody out there, I'm not saying all, there are some girls out there.
He's not saying all of one and all
right.
of another and like that, but
Right.
you have a lot of gray in there where there's a huge difference.
But there are some sports and some things where you can't, like MMA. That one MMA fighter out there destroying girls.
Yeah.
I mean, we're built different.
Just a broken orbital bone. Come on, it's not that big of a deal.
There used to be an entire show about getting putting people in jail for those cops.
I'm just thinking, what does a show like Battle of the Sexes look like now?
Right.
You're like, This is completely different type of show. It's not men versus women. It's we're just trying to guess what you guys are.
Yeah.
They both have dresses on. I don't know.
I see commercials. There was one commercial with something that was titled Her, and I'm like, well, what is her? Like, what? I don't understand how you guys keep saying this, because I don't think that you know how to define it. So why would you even? Yeah. If anybody could be anything, why do we even have definitions?
Yeah, I think Matt Walsh did a fantastic job on that. What is a Woman?
It was
documentary, and
so well put together.
It's almost too bad that he couldn't extend that into a part 2, because with Hershey doing their Hershey bar,
my gosh,
which was also represented by a transgender.
Right? Exactly.
It doesn't make any sense.
Chocolate bar celebrating, Women's Month, presented on a commercial by a transgendered man.
Yeah. It's something else.
Louis is speechless. He's like, nope.
Can't do this world anymore.
This world is really changing.
I don't care how it came about, but I can't do this world anymore. Tippett.
Hey, man. I have to have a conversation with God on that one. He's letting it happen for some reason.
Certainly destructive. Speaking of things that are destructive, our second article of the night comes from Washington Examiner. The Atlanta police charged 23 people following attack on police and fire training center. At least 23 people have been charged in connection to the violent protest at the construction site of the planned Atlanta Police and Fire Training Center in Georgia. Police officials announced on Monday. The suspects were charged with at least one count of domestic terrorism after throwing Molotov cocktails, bricks, and fireworks at the law enforcement officers. Protesters also set fires at the facility, police said. 35 people were arrested after the incident on Sunday, but it's not clear whether all 35 will be charged. Quote, this was not a protest, but the Atlanta Police Department officials said at a press conference Sunday night, quote, this wasn't about a public training center. This was about anarchy. The arrests, that was end quote. The arrests occurred at the South River Forest, also known as the Wallonie Forest, where some of the protesters who opposed the new training facility had gathered peacefully. On one side of the forest held approximately 1,000 people at a music festival. On the other side, however, several hundred people marched to the construction site, according to event organizers. Quote, music is not a crime. Protest is not a crime. People lawfully exercising First Amendment rights cannot be held criminally liable for their actions for the actions of others. End quote. The Atlanta Solidarity Fund said in a statement. Many of the people arrested were from out of state, and 2 were from out of the country. One protester was that says I think all you need to know right there, that 2 people were from out of the country.
Most of them were out of the state, from what I understand, that were arrested.
One was from France, one from Canada, according to the list of arrests by WSB-TV. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene is planning to introduce legislation that seeks to designate Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization, calling the protesters at Sunday's riot Antifa. But it's not clear what evidence Greene has that ties the organization to the recent protests.
I just love the English language, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Police charged 23, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that was after 23 charged the police.
Yeah.
I love the English language and how we can flip that around.
Yeah.
Sorry, bad joke. It was just hilarious in my head.
How's that for objective truth?
I follow a lot of Instagram accounts that are like that, honestly. I'm not proud of it, but I do.
But yeah, these people, I mean, did they have their permit?
Mm-mm.
That's what matters in
No,
America.
the people with the music festival did.
Yeah, they did.
Okay.
Yeah.
1,000 people. There were 1,000 people at the music festival, and they sure had their permit, and they were doing their protest, and it was peaceful. And I think that's what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
All day long. No, the chief was right when he said that these were criminals, not protesters. And that's how it was for the summer of 2020, the summer of love, right?
Yeah.
That was, those weren't protesters, even though they were mostly peaceful. Now that we're finding out the January 6th was mostly peaceful. Those people that went to Atlanta earlier, I know you guys heard that the one guy was killed. And they tried to sit there and blame on the cops. He shot at the cop.
Right.
He shot at the cop.
And the cops retaliated.
And he returned fire. What do you expect is going to happen?
Yeah.
He's a criminal. I'm sorry, I don't like that anybody died. But if you're going to shoot at a cop, expect to get shot back.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that guy died.
No, I'm not there with you on that one, but I get the sentiment. But I know I don't like that he died. But at the same time,
That's Alan.
that's what he expected. I mean, expect that.
I wish they would have left him there in the woods so that his energy could have went right back into the earth there.
Right?
Those poor deer.
Evolution at its best.
Like this grass tastes angsty.
Or the next day, it's like, ooh, that
That fired at me. That fired back at me.
oh man, this is bad. This is bad. Sorry, guys.
No, you're right.
Yeah. Well,
they get better. They get better.
well, we talked about objective truths on early in this episode, and some things happened potentially on a date of January 6th, 2021.
Mm-hmm.
At first, we were told it was an insurrection, and we were shown clips.
That's what you were talking about. I thought you were saying that that's the day that Nancy Pelosi finally sobered up from New Year's. Sorry.
No, she figured out how to do insider trading even better.
About a week.
Out a week.
Yeah, she figured out insider trading even better. No, but yeah, we were told that it was an insurrection. Only shown video clips of the videos. But then there's this fantastic man on Fox News named Tucker Carlson, and he was able to get a hold of
All the tapes.
several thousand hours of
60,000.
I think it was like 40,000, 400,000. It's like it's a lot.
Yeah.
We couldn't figure that out the other night on my show.
Yeah.
40, 400. I don't know. It's more than you want to watch.
Yeah.
It's the most footage you've ever seen anywhere. Trust me.
Of a guy wearing horns on his head.
Yeah. So I think we're going to take a little bit of a look into that. I might have you pause it a few times there, Sterling, so be prepared for that so that we can kind of discuss it as it goes on. But if you wouldn't mind pulling that up.
These are the pictures you've seen of January 6th.
Moving pictures.
They're familiar because they've been playing on a loop on every media outlet in America for the last 2 years. There's a reason for that. But it turns out there's quite a bit of video you haven't seen. And that video tells a very different story about what happened on January 6th. More than 40,000 hours of surveillance footage from in and around the Capitol have been withheld from the public. And once you see the video, you'll understand why. Taken as a whole, the video record does not support the claim that January 6th was an insurrection. In fact, it demolishes that claim.
Kind of looks like a walkthrough.
And that's exactly why the Democratic Party and its allies in the media prevented you from seeing it. By controlling the images you were allowed to view from January 6th, they controlled how the public understood that day. They could lie about what happened, and you would never know the difference. Those lies had a purpose. They created a pretext for a federal crackdown on opponents of the Uniparty in Washington.
Our office wanted to ensure that there was shock and awe, that we could charge as many people as possible.
The first thing you notice from viewing the full video record of January 6th
So it was planned.
is just how many people entered the Capitol building that day.
So organized.
Hundreds and hundreds of people, possibly thousands, over the course of about 2 hours. The crowd was enormous. A small percentage of them were hooligans. They committed vandalism. You've seen their pictures again and again. But the overwhelming majority weren't. They were peaceful. They were orderly and meek. These were not insurrectionists. They were sightseers. Footage from inside the Capitol overturns the story you've heard about January 6th.
They haven't seen
Protesters queue up in neat little lines. They give each other tours outside the Speaker's office. They take cheerful selfies and they smile.
I mean, that's what anybody
They're not
would do,
destroying the Capitol. They obviously revere the Capitol.
Especially with the lectern.
They're there because they believe the election was stolen from them. They believe in the system. Here's the man you've heard referred to as the QAnon shaman outside the Senate chamber. These are not rioters. These are people who wandered over from a political rally.
We will not let them silence your voices.
After the rally, they walked down Pennsylvania Avenue, where organizers had secured a federal permit to hold a legal rally on the grounds of the Capitol.
I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
Once at the Capitol building, things began.
Peacefully and patriotically Make your voices heard.
We heard it.
Have you ever heard that on any other network than Fox?
Nope.
Did you hear that just came out, I think it just came out today or yesterday on another one of these, I guess, where the QAnon shaman was outside relaying.
Yeah, they're going to show this one.
Was that? Do you have that on here?
Yeah. So,
okay.
Let's go ahead.
I won't jump ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, pop back on.
And to get chaotic, Capitol Police officers fired tear gas into the crowd. A few at the front of the herd broke windows. Someone opened the doors, and many hundreds of others just walked in.
They're going to make that the story.
Of course, they did make it the story. And at the center of it, the single most famous person arrested that day was a Navy veteran from Arizona called Jacob Chansley, often referred to as the QAnon shaman.
The so-called QAnon shaman. QAnon shaman.
Someone named Q Shaman.
Jacob Chansley became the face of January 6th, a dangerous conspiracy theorist dressed in outlandish costume who led the violent insurrection to overthrow American democracy. For these crimes, Chansley was sentenced to nearly 4 years in prison, far more time than many violent criminals now receive. What did Jacob Chansley do to receive this punishment?
He put paint on.
To this day, there is dispute over how Chansley got into the Capitol building. But according to our review of the internal surveillance video, it is very clear what happened once he got inside.
That's it.
Virtually every moment of his time inside the Capitol was caught on tape. The tapes show that Capitol Police never stopped Jacob Chansley.
Yeah,
they helped him. They acted as his tour guides.
This one's locked.
Here's video of Chansley in the Senate chamber. Capitol Police officers take him to multiple entrances and even try to open locked doors for him.
That didn't die that
We
day.
counted at least 9 officers who were within touching distance of unarmed Jacob Chansley.
I do want to note he does state that they took him to multiple entrances.
Yes.
Right. So, for sake of argument, other than the rest of the video you see,
yes,
during actual de-escalation tactics, you would guide him to try to get him out of the building.
Right.
So, at some point they were like, "All right, this guy isn't doing anything bad.
Yeah,
we'll go with it, but let's see if we can just get him to leave." Okay, I mean, they could have forced him, but they didn't, and he wasn't causing a problem.
Yeah,
but it's just they were trying to de-escalate and move him out, but he didn't do anything like they said he did.
Yeah. I think the man deserves an Oscar and an Academy Award.
I think the police officer who supposedly got crushed in a door, who's actually walking with him, deserves one of those too.
Yeah. Free Jacob. Okay, let's see the rest.
Chansley. Not one of them even tried to slow him down. Chansley understood that Capitol Police were his allies. Video shows him giving thanks for them in a prayer on the floor of the Senate. Watch.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for giving the inspiration needed to these police officers to allow us in this building.
Contrast the reality of what Jacob Chansley did in the Capitol building on January 6th, the indisputable facts recorded on video, some of which has never before been seen, with the depiction of Jacob Chansley that you've seen in the media for more than 2 years. He's a terrorist, they said. He should be killed.
Shoot him. Yeah. Shoot him.
Why?
Like, if you burst into the United States,
what do you want?
If he was dressed like Bin Laden, would you have shot him?
Shoot him. Shoot him. It makes you wonder, who are the violent extremists here? Not Jacob Chansley, and the video proves that. But you would never have known from the media coverage.
The people sitting in the chairs
American flag.
need to be sitting in a jail cell.
Chansley is in a jail cell. He's been there for months. If he was in fact committing such a grave crime, why didn't the officers who were standing right next to him place him under arrest?
They were their buddies.
Until now, no one could even prove that even happened. But it did.
Okay,
subscribe.
That's the end of that one.
I can't tell you how mad it makes me when I hear it. If he looked like, how about if he acted like?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that, I don't understand that those are the same people who are saying that police officers are bad and they shoot and kill, certain races at a higher rate when statistically it doesn't really, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's not what you look like, it's what you act like. And
that's what they want. And that's what they want us to focus on, while they continue to tell us to focus on whether it's skin color or how they dress or nationality or culture or ethnicity or whatever. Like, he brings that up knowing it's about how you act. But yeah, so
what
why do you want me to focus on how you look?
Woman? What if you look like a blonde woman who happened to just climb through a window? Because they had no problem shooting that person.
Yeah, Ashley Babbitt.
How about if he would have been black? wearing that outfit. You think he would have got through all those?
I'm surprised he didn't say that.
Well, I did notice just one crime that he committed that day.
What was that?
That outfit.
That was.
Yeah. Call the fashion police because that was not a good choice.
I sort of envy the horns. I'm not gonna lie though.
The horns are pretty amazing.
Yeah, those are pretty cool.
And the stars on his face are on point. Someone put that on his face. There's no way he did that himself. It's too on point.
Yeah. It's good.
I think those cops were very professional when they were there.
Yeah.
Him.
Except for Shooty McGee, the one Shooty McGee. It's like,
that one guy, he probably panicked.
Yeah, the officer that shot Ashley Babbitt, he actually doesn't witness her coming through the window. She's actually coming through a window to stop someone else.
Yeah,
and as she does, she pulls that other person away. She's actually leaning towards the window at that point. He's got the gun just kind of waving around a corner, shaking his hand. So there's no professional.
Why does he even have his job?
I have no idea.
There was
actually
nothing.
A hero.
There was.
Now.
I know. Why does he have? There's no opportunity, means, or intent. There's no way he could have explained that. You can't tell me because all these people were coming in at once. You know what? You weren't being attacked. There's video to prove that. She wasn't attacking you by any means. And who stares down their sights with? Well, no, he wasn't even looking at it. He was just aiming around the side, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So he wasn't even sighting in.
Plus, no officers died that day. I don't know if you guys know that. It's been proven now.
Yeah.
So they started off with it was 7,
and 4.
Yeah,
four people died that
5,
day.
Yeah, and then it ended up at 5.
Yeah,
I think that's what I heard Biden say. 5 people died that day.
And they went down all the way down to 1, and it was Officer Sicknick. As they said, it was a fire extinguisher that got knocked over his head.
And all of them are just different AOC personalities.
And when they crashed through the fence, they said they hurt those cops that were holding the fence.
Yeah.
They didn't get
cops
hurt.
just opened the fence actually,
Yeah.
and in the video, the video actually shows Officer Sicknick not
walking
being attacked
around
at all. Yeah,
afterwards, very energetically waving people by. Just, yeah.
So all this video is contrary to the things that we've been told by Miss Cheney and Adam Schiff or Adam Shifty Schiff and that entire committee and all this. I mean, even Lindsey Graham, whom I used to have some kind of faith in, just turncoated real quick as soon as they could, and it really revealed who the establishment really was.
Yeah.
And not only that, but we're coming to find out now through some more of this footage that the feds they were involved and they were pushing people to go in.
Yeah. And then the other video, are you showing the other video of the officer who was ticked off because they were told to go to a certain area? They were told to go to an area where nothing was happening. They had a bunch of officers over there.
Didn't actually have that video queued up.
Oh,
but,
yeah, he was ticked.
There's a lot. There's
this is a setup.
I mean, like you said, thousands of hours of stuff. And but one man in particular named Ray Epps, which I think we've all heard that name at some point. This man was definitely he's definitely a federal officer, and he was telling people, let's go to the Capitol building, let's go riot.
Yeah.
He's screaming at the top of his lungs.
Yeah.
And then in the video, what you actually hear is the crowd around him doing what we would all do. That's a Fed.
Right.
That is a Fed right there.
Yeah.
Don't listen to him. That's a Fed.
Yeah.
So I think that what actually happened, and I think as the video evidence keeps coming out more and more, you're going to find out that most of the damage that was done by federal officers or encouraged via entrapment.
Yeah.
By these federal officers.
Well, like the video, the short that we put up on my video, which is coming out later this weekend.
Yeah.
There's actually an officer. We know it's an officer. We know it's a Fed. There's a broken window. We don't really know how the window was broken, but he's breaking the glass. And when someone tells him to stop, a guy holding a flag tells him to stop, he turns around and realizes there's a camera on him. He shoves the guy with the flag and then points at it and blames the broken window on the guy with the flag.
Yeah.
Because the guy says, don't go in that window.
Right.
And now, there's a camera on me.
Yeah.
It's this guy's fault.
Yeah.
He did it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But the video tells the entire story. So, you know, and that I couldn't believe that the guy backed down. Because we talked about that.
Oh, if someone would shove me like that, oh my God.
It was all the left false news.
Yeah.
it wasn't nothing truth about whatever happened there.
Yeah, someone shoved me like that, they would learn an objective truth real quick. And that being said, I think we'll get a closing prayer and we'll get the heck out of here.
Sounds great. Lord, I just thank you for these guys. I thank you for this conversation, Lord. I thank you for just you just being who you are. And I'm thankful that you did create. I'm thankful that you created us. I know a lot of people say this world is just too bad to live in. Don't even want to bring kids into this world anymore. But God, I am grateful for life. I'm grateful for these guys. I'm grateful for Revolver Broadcasting and Faith, Family, and Politics. And God, just what you have put on Josh's heart and these guys here that brought me in and allowed me to be here and just share my heart. God, I just ask that you'll continue to bless all of those that are listening and watching. And Father, I pray that they do their own research. God, we're not telling them what to think. We just want them to think. Just think, period. Just take some time, do some real research, dig into everything. Don't read headlines, don't read articles. And God, for me, I just pray that if they're out there, any Christians out there, please just be praying and ask God to guide them, the Holy Spirit to guide them, get into Scripture and just know what the truth is. And so that when those lies start coming at them, they can discern real easily what the truth is. Lord, thank you. Just love you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
That was host of the It Makes Sense podcast, Danny Tippett. Thank you for joining us sure.
No, thanks for having me again.
We got to remind people they can actually check that show out right here on Revolver Broadcasting, wherever we're at, on all the places.
All the places.
You got to do it. It's great.
All the places.
The YouTubes, the Rumbles, the Facebooks.
All of it.
I'm adding S because I want to.
Do it. Do it.
And anywhere you download your audio podcasts.
Yes. We're excited.
Yes, sir.
Hopefully it makes sense.
Didn't take that into consideration. Do you ever look back at it and like, yeah, okay, this didn't make sense? But
no, I did. We did completely redid an entire episode because it didn't make sense.
Yeah. So you be the arbiter and you comment and let us know, so that we know we can retool on the show if we need to.
That's funny.
Next to him, the host of Laughing Libertarian, you know him, you love him, Alan McFarland.
Thanks for having me. Wow.
I'm going to say thank you for being here.
Let him finish.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's wonderful.
We had quite a late start, didn't we, Alan?
A little bit.
Yeah.
New episode this weekend, guys.
Yeah. So make sure you're going and checking that out. So we got a lot of good stuff coming out here very, very soon. And also coming out with 2 new episodes here very, very soon. This coming week, the host of Rodriguez Rants, Louis Rodriguez.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here.
It was a good show. It was a big show.
Thank you.
What kind of a show was it, Louis?
It was a great show.
And I've been your host, Joshua Cummins, reminding you that in the morning, I'm making waffles.
Nice.
See you next week.
Bye.